What's your opinion about the discussion of a federal statute of data protection in US?
So this is a very contentious issue. And the main problem is there are those who believe that people like Google and Facebook are just not being honest about all the data processing that they're doing. You remember all this Cambridge Analytica. You remember that whole situation there. So there's a lot of people who believe that. And data is, after all, the currency of the 21st century. You know, there's so much data that is being collected, but more importantly, different pieces of data are being agglomerated. The aggregation of the data is really something that allows companies to get a very clear idea of who you are in a very granular way. So it is a problem. It is a problem. But these companies are also spending a lot of money, literally hundreds of millions of dollars. By one report, it was somebody mentioned that they've spent $500+ million lobbying Congress to sort of not have strict laws. Of course, that has also caused a backlash, and now there are people in Congress who talk about breaking them up and not allowing like Facebook to own Instagram because that allows them to combine the images with the other browsing habits. So these companies are under siege, on various sides. So it sort of remains to be seen, what happens. On the other hand, let me point out that the French, data protection authorities, they fined Google for the activities with respect to French citizens. They fined them 50 million. So there is some rules that, even if we don't have a federal law, if there is a lot of rules and regulations all over the world, then companies who do business all over the world, they do have to comply. So it's not really that simple that, hey, they can get away with it. On the other hand, you have people, professors and so on, who are arguing about surveillance capitalism. There is now a surveillance capitalism going on where basically, you are constantly being surveilled and this is being monetized. And so I think this is very much changing. But I have to say that consumers are, of course, agitated, and consumers, of course, don't realize how much information about them is being taken. So there's an informational asymmetry because every individual doesn't realize how much information is being taken about them, and they cannot properly value that information. So you have that issue. Now, on the other hand, companies, they do have to comply. And I mentioned the U.S. Privacy Shield. They do have to comply. So it's not like, there is no legal recourse. So that's a sort of a long answer to a broad question, but there's a lot going on.
And the point too, for these big companies, I don't know if could be better for them to have the rules of the game. Because nowadays in US you have this different statutes, different states. This causes a mess in some sense.
You bring up a great point. Your point is a really valuable one, which is that uncertainty and lack of clarity sometimes is worse than having a strict law, because at least you know what you need to do. And the GDPR is actually a very good example. You need clear, unambiguous consent. That's what the GDPR says. So you can live with that. You can explain what you're doing to collect data, what kind of cookies you're using, so on. The GDPR requires that you present all this information to a consumer, and the consumer can then consent. And of course, the consumer can then change their mind, revoke consent, and you have to remind the consumer again and again that the consent has to be renewed. But there is some clear rules. So if you follow them, then you're okay. So I agree with you. In fact, this type of uncertainty is okay if you're a large company and you have lots of money to spend trying to sort of deal with all these differences, and presenting different websites to, if you're a EU citizen, all this stuff. It's great but it's not great for small and medium enterprises that will then be forced to simply comply with the most stringent law. So yes, I mean, absolutely correct. I mean, if you've got hundreds of billions of dollars like these large tech companies do, then they actually benefit from some of the chaos. But typically, typically, I agree with you. One of the basic insights in economic analysis of law is that legal uncertainty can create all kinds of additional costs that really are, burdensome.